It's, looks like it's 6:32. Mr. Lima, are we ready to proceed on your end? I can't hear you guys speaking to the microphone, sir.
Yes, we're online.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, called meeting to order, approval of the minutes. So the first minutes on the agenda is the minutes of August 26, 2025. Just seeing if anybody has any edits or corrections. Otherwise, the motion to approve would be in order.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve made by Director Carrero. Is there a second? Seconded
Second.
by Commissioner Exter. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Next one is the September 2nd, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Are there any edits to these minutes? Seeing none, a motion to approve would be in order. Made by Commissioner Mancini. Seconded by Director Carrero. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. This brings it to the Vaughn Lane project. It's my understanding that we have a letter requesting a withdrawal by the applicant. Would the applicant like to be heard on this matter?
Yes, good evening. Tanessa Azar on behalf of the applicant. Like you said, you have a letter from our office. Essentially, we received the title information we were waiting for on this matter, and as to Winnie Street, it proved essentially inconclusive. So based on that, the plan is to withdraw this application and return to you with an amended and redesigned project. So tonight we ask that, I guess, you accept our withdrawal, and then we'd come back with a new project. I know the procedure of it is a little, we want to clarify whatever you need to clarify essentially, but that's the basis of it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant on the request for a withdrawal? Okay. All right. I will now open it up to anyone from the public that would like to speak on their request for withdrawal.
President, if I could please, Stephen Slighpole on behalf of some of the neighbors. I'm really here because we received this letter and it wasn't, there was enough ambiguity that my clients wanted me to be here and clarify this. And so I spoke to Attorney Azar beforehand, and it is our understanding that this application is now over, and whatever comes next will be a new application. That this is not a continuance. I wanted to make sure the record was clear. There was no ambiguity, and that whatever comes next is a new application. Because we did see language in here about amended application, but that's not what this is. As long as we're all on the same page that this is whatever comes next is a new application, then we have no objection to the withdrawal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slighpole. Any questions for the applicants? Excuse me, the abutters attorney? Okay, seeing none. All right, thank you. I'm going to open this up, but I don't think we need to. Is there any public comment? Okay. Mr. Lima, is there anyone online that make public comment on this request for a continuance?
There is no public comment online.
Oh, withdrawal. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause a problem. Withdrawal. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. So does anyone have any discussion or anything they'd like to say before we make motions and vote? Commissioner Lanfear?
Thank you. I would just like that clarified or at least confirmed by Ms. Azar that it is a withdrawal of the application, and if they wish, a completely new application will be filed.
Yeah, so I'll clarify that. We just weren't sure because this process isn't really outlined in the ordinance or in state law. And we didn't want you guys to think that, be surprised when we came back. So this will be a new application for the same property.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Do you have something? Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just wanted to say thank you for all the residents who have come out from the beginning until now. Everyone's really done their homework and brought things to us that I think will make this project better when it comes back. And I think that's the goal, as a by right project. We want it to be as good as it can be. So I think everyone that's been coming out has really helped with that. And I would agree on having this withdrawn without prejudice so that then it can come back as a new application. And I'm hoping that next time this is something that we have all said, that the information as far as right of way and easements is something that we get at the beginning so that we don't kind of spin our wheels for months. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mazzulli. Anything else from anyone else? Okay, I'll just make a quick comment before we make the motion. I just want to thank the parties, and I mean by the parties, I mean Mrs. Czar and the developer and all associated with that, and also the abutters and the people, the public, for conducting yourselves in a professional manner. This thing could have been gotten really out of hand sometimes. The temperature rose in the room a few times, but overall, I think everyone handled themselves quite well. And I want to thank people for doing that. These issues can be very contentious because there's usually either a lot of money involved or people's homes are involved, and both things can mean a lot to people. And also, I appreciate when it comes to these cases, learning something new. I'm a lifelong learner, so I learned a lot about rights of way that I never knew before. And like I said, when you're in this position, sometimes you do come across something new. And lastly, just as a general comment, I have said this before, I always appreciate public comment. Even when I don't necessarily agree with what's being said, I always appreciate what the public has to say because I learn from it. I was at a thing a couple of months ago at the Central Library, and there was people there talking about a book called Neighborhood Defenders. And the staff was there too, separately. And it was critical of it was criticized the idea of public input in the land use process because it impeded development. And I didn't have the same view. And one thing I'm happy about from this process that I learned is that everybody learned something, that there was an issue with a right-of-way on Winnie Street. And that came from the public. So public input is relevant, does matter, it's valuable. So with that said, my last thing is I hope both sides here work together in the next project so that this can, not everyone's going to get everything they wanted, but hopefully if somebody all works together in good faith, you can come up with something that the neighborhood likes, the community likes, the developer likes, and the city likes, and we all can have less contentious meetings, and you guys in fiscal don't have to drive all your way out to the eastern side of the city. And I won't have to drive all the way to Fiskville and get lost. And before this event, I never knew one person from Fiskville. So this was something, another learning experience for me. So with that said, anybody have any other speeches, or we just make motions? Motion. So anyone wants to make a motion? Motion to accept the withdrawal made by Vice President Koob, seconded by Commissioner Mazzulli. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. All right, good night. We'll see you again. We'll just take a couple of minutes for the room to clear. If anybody online is wondering what's going on. Is everybody set? Because I'd like to get started on the next thing, if you don't mind. All right, I'm gonna try to get this moving along. The comprehensive plan amendments, I'm gonna push that to the end because we have other people here who would have some matters before us, so I'd like to deal with that first. So next thing on the agenda is that I'd like to take up is 1489 Pippard Orchard Road, public informational. Is the applicant here and wishes to talk about this?
The applicant is unfortunately out of town, but I am here on the applicant's behalf, Attorney Stephen Antonucci, here for Ted Rampini, who is the applicant. I also have Jenna Shea from Dupree Engineering to give a brief overview on this, but as you see in front of you, it's just a very simple subdivision of one lot into two lots. And Jenna, if I could.
Come on up.
Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. And we're here to present the pre-application. We did do an informal pre-application meeting. And we just wanted the opportunity to get your feedback, especially since we're going to be applying under Unified Development Review for this minor subdivision. And we just wanted to hear if there was any feedback that we could incorporate before we do the engineering. So the project site is located on Pippin Orchard Road. The address is 1489 Pippin Orchard, and that is AP 28, lot 31. And the subject lot is zoned A80, which is single family, 80,000 square feet, and has a total site area of 5.7 acres. The way that it is, actually, could we pull up the site plan? Oh, we can leave this. So this is the existing conditions plan. And as you can see, so this project was previously another more recent subdivision project where the front 4 lots had gotten subdivided out. And then there's a back lot where there's an existing home, and that's going to be the subject parcel for this project. So the owner, who is Ted, and he owns the existing home in the back over there. And he is proposing to subdivide that existing lot into 2 proposed lots. The 2 proposed lots, as shown on this plan, would meet all of the defined setbacks for the A80 zone, would meet the suitable area requirement for the A80 zone. The only item that we would be requesting release from is the frontage requirement. So as you can see, this parcel as it exists today does not have frontage. And it's accessed by this approximately 10-foot wide existing gravel access way that's located in a right-of-way easement. This access drive would remain in its existing conditions. It currently only services that one residential home that's in the back. So you can see on this plan, what we have done is both lots would remain serviced by this access drive. And then there would be a small split off up at the top over here that would provide private driveway access to the additional residential home. All of the wetlands and the survey has been completed to date, and the existing home would remain in place and currently has an existing private septic system and an existing private well, which would remain servicing that home. And then the other proposed home would have a proposed private septic system and a private well as well. And also, I just want to note that the dimensional setbacks also, we made sure that they work for that existing structure as well. So we made sure that that stays out of the setback area. And then, as I had mentioned, the private drive, we would like to leave in its existing conditions as it provides sufficient access to these lots, to this lot today. And then I would be open to any questions, any feedback you may have, or anything that you'd like to see when we come back in the future.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Shea from Director Carrero?
just got a couple of questions. The existing, I assume that's an easement. What properties is that easement part of?
So there, you're speaking of the one with the access drive, correct? Like that one, right? So there's a couple easements on here. So there's the purple, like there's a purple line, that's an electrical easement for the existing overhead wires. Just north of that is the existing access drive. That is actually an undefined right-of-way.
It's on an undefined,
It's an undefined right-of-way.
so there's no easement that anybody has the right to cross that.
So it's an access easement right-of-way. I can get the exact terminology.
I was gonna say, because I don't want to go down the path that they just did
I know.
with Vaughn.
Oh, I know far too well.
Because I had a totally different interpretation of what their definition of easement and access and right-of-way is. So either it's a right-of-way, which would mean it is public, or it's an easement, which means it's on somebody's private property, and someone has given someone else the right to utilize that property to gain access to somewhere else. That's what I'm trying to figure out here, so we don't have any confusion, because I don't see any easement lines defined for that access right now.
And so I will confirm with our survey department, but per our class 1 survey that was completed for this property when we did it previously I was actually the project manager on the previous subdivision for this parcel. And it was defined as an undefined right-of-way. But I can get more information on that.
I wouldn't,
100%.
I would just say for us to understand it and to be able to give permission, if we're giving permission for someone to access property through someone else's, I don't think we have the right to do that. So we either have to determine whether or not there's a legal easement. If there isn't, then something should be secured prior to coming back, because that will be one of the questions we're gonna have as far as what's the legal right of way.
Yeah.
Don't wanna use that
Yeah,
word.
and if I could just join in, obviously, if it's an easement by prescription to the back, by adding another lot, you'd be burdening a prescriptive easement, which you would then need permission, which you can't do. I mean, you would need permission from whoever owns lot 10.
So the owner, the applicant actually did recently speak with the owner that is in that top corner over there, that lot 10.
Yeah.
And she had no objections to our proposal.
Yes, I guess, Steve, you need to secure something.
Button it up.
Well, secure an easement deed with description in order to allow this board to consider that application.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Shea? I just have a couple of questions, Ms. Shea, just because I'm not an engineer, so I don't really read these maps well. It's two different lots, right?
Correct.
Does any one of them have a house on it now?
One of them does. So the proposed lot, my lot numbers, right? So proposed lot 1 has a proposed single-family home,
Yep,
proposed well, proposed septic.
Yep.
And then lot 2 has the existing home, the existing well, septic.
and approximately how large are their lot sizes?
So the usable area, which is what kind of has to meet that 80,000 threshold. So lot 1 has 80,586 usable. And then lot 2 has 109,335 square feet usable.
All right, thank you.
And if I could, so you're defining usable area by, you're taking out what, the electric easement and what else?
We're taking out the wetlands, the
Wetlands, but
wetland area.
not the electric. So can you go back to the other one? So the red cross, is that an easement for the electrical lines?
That's an overhead electric easement.
So I believe, stop me if I'm wrong, I believe usable area under our code excludes utility easements. Check that.
So I recently did look into this.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I recently looked into this and,
Okay.
the subdivision regulations and the zoning regulations didn't exactly line up. So when we looked into the state law, and state law says to exclude just the wetland area.
I can comment on that. So we pretty recently amended our subdivision regulations that excludes it, but only like excludes overhead easement, just these electric easements. But in our zoning ordinance, we haven't amended the zoning ordinance to match up with our subdivision regulations yet. So there's discrepancy about how either of them defines buildable area.
State law and the subdivision, state subdivision law or state zoning law? I'm not, sorry to put you on the spot. I just,
No, that's fine. Rhode Island general laws, I believe the subdivision laws, but I would
all
I
right,
would need to confirm.
Steve, could you check on that too? I just don't want,
I have documentation too that I had already kind of put together about
yeah,
this
because I
that
thought,
could
I
send
thought
you.
usable area excludes a little bit more. And then my final question, and I'm sorry, because this is a legal nightmare, is, was the big lot part of the 4-lot subdivision up in front?
It was.
Was there any conditions of approval on the 4-lot subdivision that would impede an additional subdivision if it was all one parcel and we approved the 4-lot subdivision? Were there any conditions of approval that would inhibit an additional subdivision of the subdivision?
Not to my recollection. And we also did, like, as you can see, just south of our subject parcel, there's a whole open space area, and that's not part of the application. So that was part of the RPD, and that's going to stay as is. And then the front 4 lots wouldn't get touched with this application.
Yeah, because I thought the 4-lot subdivision had an open space area, which was there.
Yep. So we actually use all of the property lines that you're seeing on this plan are from the record plan that was recorded for that project. So they're the same property lines that were defined and approved for that open space and those front 4 lots.
Why are you looking at me like that? I'm just seeing what's happening around the state and here is that we're getting subdivisions on top of subdivisions, and I just had one that basically they told me my client not even to apply in South Kingston because as part of the original subdivision, they agreed to only limit the subdivision to a certain number of lots. And now they want to take the big lot and re-subdivide it kind of like it's here, but there was actually a condition of approval in the original subdivision. And I don't remember what was the condition of the first. So we would need that also, Jen.
Okay. I did review it before this project. I don't recall anything, but I will double check for sure.
Nope, that's very important stuff. Vice Chairman? Okay. All right. Director Pereira?
Again, just to kind of follow up with what Attorney Marcellus said, the open space calculation that was required since those 4 lots in front were undersized lots. None of that area is impacted by what you're proposing to do now. So in order to have 4 lots, you needed 4 80,000 square foot lots minimum. But obviously, those are only, I think, 3/4 or 1 acre lots. So that the space down below, which would be the southwestern corner, is something that was used for that calculation as open space, correct?
Correct. And those actually fell under an RPD. So they had reduced area requirement of 20,000 square feet. There was dimensional relief that was provided for those specifically to the frontage. And I believe the front 2 had area request. No, and I believe the back 2 met that 20,000 area. Just from my recollection.
Yeah, just take note. I mean, we can review this when the actual application comes in, but just note that. We'll have to take a look at that original.
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Shea? Commissioner Lampier?
Thank you. It's not really a question, but just following up on what we just discussed. Perhaps when you do the actual plan for us to have some overlay slide that shows us what was approved, and what you're asking for now, so that we can see that areas don't overlap
Okay.
or
So-
do overlap, so that it would be easier for us to understand what the subject of the are seeking. and are asking.
So it's kind of like an exhibit. The only thing is I just want to make sure that people don't get confused and kind of blend the two projects together because they're totally different applicants, different projects,
Yeah, I think our concern is
that the property lines.
that
didn't
they're
change and-
segregated. One of the people that lot.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Shea? All right, thank you, Ms. Shea.
Thank you very much.
I'll see if there's any, whoever shut that off, thank you very much. It was like this, everyone at home watching, there was this white noise in the background.
I was wondering what it was, but I thought.
And it was like, am I imagining this? Who has left this on? Anyway, all right, thank you, Ms. Shea. I'll take, is there any public comment here in the room about this proposal? Okay. Mr. Lima, is there anyone online that wants to make public comment on this?
There is no public comment online.
All right, thank you. Anyone, have any last thoughts for Mr. Antonucci, Ms. Shea? Okay, so I think you got your homework on what you need to do to come before us. Okay?
All right,
All right,
great.
thank you very much. Next, we have 235 Beckwith Street. I have here, it says there's a continuance request. Director Ashman, could you explain what the request is? It's probably to the next meeting, right? John, sorry.
Yeah, so this is also not my project, but to my understanding, the applicant for this project, the owner, applied for the project and then sold the property to another person, and the other person wants to continue with the project, the new owner. They want to continue with the subdivision, but they just needed more time to kind of get their bearings on this. But in the meantime, we've already done the advertising for this project.
Right.
So that's why the continuance is necessary.
Okay. And because if there's a new owner, there's probably, you have to update something in the application about ownership and other stuff like that. Minor stuff. But you still gotta
Yeah, you would need new signatures and not necessarily new application fee, but the new owners of the property would have to sign the amended application.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I don't believe there was anything in our regulations that requires the ownership to be in the advertisement. So that's why we thought they wouldn't have, if we could continue this, we
Well,
wouldn't have to re-advertise.
Yeah, you should re-advertise.
We should re-advertise.
You should. Well, I mean, this is just for once we need the new owner's signature on the application. And my advice would be to re-advertise.
So would you consider this a new application?
No, I don't think they'd have to pay a new application fee, but because
But they
the
should
application,
re-advertise.
I think they should re-advertise with the new owner. It's better practice. whoever, or the new owner pays for both, or whatever whoever pays for whoever, but I would re-advertise it with the new owner. Once you get the new owners, because you've advertised something with, you have an applicant that didn't authorize the first advertisement. Because that was a different owner. So, interesting.
Yeah, we thought that like, because technically in our regulations, we don't require like the owner in as part of the like advertisements, and it's the same project, same property, only difference is different owner.
The only thing I would say is if I was a member of the public, who the owner is could matter to me. I think sometimes who the owner is matters to people who come before zoning board sometimes.
Correct. I mean,
know.
legally, it's just plat, lot, address, but
Right.
the owner can be.
Yes, that's probably the only reason that I can understand why an additional public notice could be beneficial. That I
I
don't know.
think we do put the owner name in the advertisement. So. But it's not a requirement.
Yeah, it's sometimes people are influenced by who the owner is. Because they look at the owner's history of what they've done on other properties. Is it occurs very often? Nope. Yeah, but it could be an issue. That's just my own thing. I tend to agree with myself. Commissioner Renzulli?
I just would like someone to clarify, but someone is going to pay for this, but we are not going to cover the advertisement again.
We do
Someone else
not
is
cover
going to get
costs for
charged.
advertisements, unless we're the ones who screw something up, we do not cover costs for advertisements.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions about this continuance? This would be a continuance to November, what's the next meeting, the 4th? Fifth?
Oh, actually, it says November. Yeah, I guess it says it on the slide.
Okay. All right, if there's anything else, there'll be a time for a motion for continuance to November the 4th.
Motion to continue until November 4th.
Made by Commissioner Renzulli, seconded by Commissioner Exeter. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Next item is the continuance request for 102 Old Oak Avenue. Could the staff explain the reason for the request for a continuance?
This one was, we advertised the project in the newspaper, and then the applicant failed to do the abutters notices. So for the next meeting, the applicant needs to submit the abutters.
Okay, I think that's a good reason.
To submit abutters notices.
Okay, any questions for staff on this? Any discussion? Okay, motion to continuance until November the 4th. In order. Motion made by Commissioner Mancini, seconded by Vice President Coop. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We'll move to zoning board of review. Frenchtown Capital Partners.
Mr. President,
Steve, we have a recusal.
yeah, I'll need to recuse on this one.
Jackson will be recusing himself on this matter. Thank you, Commissioner. Sorry. Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Ray.
All right. 175 and 0 Oakland Avenue. The applicant is requesting relief from the merger provision to construct a single-family dwelling on an undersized lot. So, the applicant has requested specific relief in the application. Relief from substandard lots record. So, if you apply the sliding scale to these lots and, they do, comply as, buildable lots. And, they also both provide sufficient accommodations for vehicular access and comply with the setback, frontage, and lot width requirements outlined in the sliding scale. Staff has reviewed this application in consideration with the compatibility of the general character of the surrounding area. Surrounding areas are primarily residential in nature, and the trust does not propose or encourage incompatible uses that would be disruptive. An analysis of the neighborhood demonstrates that 71% of lots zoned B1 Park neighborhood are substandard in size, meaning smaller than 6,000 square feet. And of the 378 lots zoned B1 in Park, 199 are between 4,000 square feet and 4,800 square feet. This means that lots of this size make up the majority of zone B1. Proposed parcel A and proposed parcel B are both within this range, meaning that the application is compatible with the character of the neighborhood. And we also found that the application is consistent with future land use map designation, negligibly changing the density, keeping it far below the future limits. So I'd like to give a positive recommendation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ray. Is the applicant here and wishes to be heard on this matter? Okay. See, anything? So first I'll just, we'll do questions for the staff and then we'll open up for public comment. Mr. Ray, just a couple of clarification things, because I'm just trying to understand how this, when you go back to where it says 71% of the lots zoned, are you talking about 71% of all the lots within 400 feet? 71% of all the lots in that area? I mean, how do you define?
Yeah, so the official there is one. So every lot within the
So the Eden Park's neighborhood, that's B1, is not just within 400 feet. It could be 800 feet, it could be 1,000 feet away from this?
exactly.
Okay. And did you do an analysis of just the lots within 400 feet?
I believe I did, but I did not.
Okay, because it'd be, just so you know, from, everyone has different facts that they consider when they review these things. For me, I like to look at 400 or 200 feet. What does it look like?
So the reason why I didn't do a 400-foot analysis.
It's because of the school?
As you can see in this.
Yeah.
So the school is like,
Yeah.
that takes up a lot of area. And also,
Okay. On the density calculation, you did a density calculation of what the neighborhood would be if this proposal is granted. Now, I assume you did a calculation of this entire B1 Eden Park neighborhood? Is that what the calculation of 9.34 is?
Yep.
Okay. Did you do a calculation of what it would be for this particular parcel? What would happen? Like, would it be now the density of this project? Would it be about, like, for example, I think I calculated it. I think about 9.92 or something like that. Does that sound about right too? Because each one is about 4,000 square feet. Okay, no, it's, I love you as a witness. I gotta have you at more of my hearings. No, my point in this is what I was asking, Mr. Ray, is just, I like to know also this, again, this is one of these facts that I care about, which is what is the density of the actual project? And I've asked that of other people who presented, but I think it's about 10. And that's still within the future land use map of 10.89. Okay, thank you. That's all it was, Mr. Ray. Is there any other questions from Mr. Ray? Is there any public comment here that likes to be heard on this project? I don't see any in the room. Mr. Leamer, is there anyone online that wants to talk about this project?
There is no public comment online.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, this would be a proper time for motions.
I make a motion to accept the positive recommendation of the planning staff.
Motion made for a positive recommendation by Director Carrero, seconded by Commissioner Renzulli. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ray. I know you're sticking with us for the next one. The next one is Force Realty and Amy Fairs at 74 Ralph Square.
All right, so, this is a request for variance, for off-street parking. And applicant has filed requesting permission to construct a dining area without an increase. Scenario view, see where the addition will be. See a little better there. So our off-street parking requirements for eating and drinking establishments state that one space should be provided for each. The proposed parking provided is 12 spaces in total. To fulfill the parking requirement, there are, they would need to. Planning staff has reviewed this application. Property and surrounding area consists of general business uses, and the list does not propose or encourage compatible uses that would be disruptive to the surrounding. Wall Square is a historic main street which is designed for mobility and neighborhood access in mind. There is abundant on-street parking nearby, indicating that reduced off-street parking will not prevent customers from accessing this restaurant or surrounding businesses. Staff also finds that the application is consistent with future land use map designation, which is neighborhood commercial / services, which closely aligns with the current C3. Staff would give a positive recommendation.
Thank you. Is the applicant here wishes to be heard on this matter?
Good evening, Robert Murray for Lonnie's Bistro LLC. This actually taken away from parking, like you see from the photograph. The Lonnie has the city outside dining. Food related. That those spaces have been available for the last. Undergoing the renovation of the restaurant. The other tenant. Very limited hours. Limited number of spaces. Must be fun. I've been working. Force Realty. Property, we also own. Go off on the opposite side of the road. Bank. ample off-street parking, frankly, this restaurant. Temporary restaurant, Long House Square. Code, parking. Right now, there's a lot of takeout.
Thank you. Does any, of my fellow colleagues, have any questions for Mr. Murray? Commissioner Lampier?
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is. Does the addition of
Actually, if we dig into the process.
Mr. Murray, I have a couple of questions real quick. You represented that and off-street parking has not been a problem in the area at this time? That off-street parking has not been a problem in the Ralph's Square area at this time?
Well, with respect to this location. With respect to this restaurant.
Mr. Ray, are you aware of any off-street parking problems in the vicinity or related to this restaurant? Okay, did we receive any public, however, about this issue about off-street parking in that area that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions for Mr. Murray?
And plus with the take it outside, state law, I mean, that area is deemed usable.
No, my only, like I said, I used to live in that area. You can park over here. Let's have a concern of creating an off-street park. So that's kind of what, when you're taking away, not taking away is not the right term. When you're seeking less than half of what is required, that's a big number. And so once I give it to you, somebody else will say, I wanted to, and then that's really what I'm trying to see if there was a true off-street parking problem right now. There's not, okay. It's a concern. That's all. I'm on the zoning board. So, any other, okay. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Are there any other questions? Okay. Any public comment on this application? Seeing none here in the room. Anyone online, Mr. Lima, that would like to comment on this?
There is no public comment online.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ray, you've made a positive recommendation. Is there any questions or comments? Not, motion would be in order.
Motion to accept a positive recommendation from the planning staff.
Motion made for a positive recommendation by Commissioner Renzulli. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Rector Carrero. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Good night, Mr. Murray. Next, we will go to bond release request.
So the finance department at CVS was combing through their books and found that they still had a bond from the construction that happened back in 2011 on the CVS on Broad Street, Newark, and Norwood Avenue. There's a $3,000 bond, and we are recommending that we release the bond as all the work has been completed.
Director Carrero, you have anything to add on that?
Like I said, I did go out there to take a look at it, and after 14 years or so, I don't think there's anything that hasn't been done that was supposed to be.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, any questions for the staff? Not a motion will be ordered to release the bond.
I make a motion to release the bond.
Motion made to release the bond by Director Carrero, seconded by Commissioner Lampier. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have. Now we return back to the beginning of our agenda, which is a comprehensive plan amendment update and presentation on progress from the staff. Go ahead, Director Ashman.
Thank you. Moving full speed ahead with comp plan phase 2, as well as expediting work on the housing element. We're aiming to have a carefully crafted housing element that responds to all the most recent parameters from the state in front of the CPC in November. So we're close to having a draft for you to be able to review. The intent is to submit this element to statewide planning directly as a draft for review while we continue to work on all the other elements of the comp plan. So we have to do, one of the things we talked about at our last meeting on this is that we need to do a 20-year plan for housing. And what you're seeing here is a record of how many housing units that we've produced in Cranston from 1950 to the present in the dark green. And then in the lighter green, me showing ramping up to meet that housing 2030 goal in the next 5 years. And you could see, I've assumed we're it's already October in 2025, so we're not going to increase many more units this year. But I'm showing the sort of ramping up towards 2030 to make that goal. And then based on the population's projections for Cranston, which are quite low growth out to 2046, I'm showing what maybe the continual need for housing would be for those out years in the 5 years. So it's quite an interesting graph. It kind of emphasizes that that the 2030 goal is going to be quite a ramp up in housing production to meet that. I would look at this graph and I think of it also like you're squeezing a balloon, you squeeze one side and it pops out that way, like, because you can see housing production just dropped off in 2008 and never recovered. So the story from the state is that we've accumulated a housing shortage by producing slightly too few units every year since 2008. And so there's some catch up to do. And then once we caught up, the plan, I think, is for very steady, to allow very steady housing. But these projections are kind of the basis for the housing production plan that we have to do. Go to the next slide. Just to recap, the checklist that we have to avoid comprehensive permits. Approve the housing, getting an approved comp plan, adopting inclusionary zoning, and meeting the 10% housing, guaranteed LMI affordable housing. We're currently at 6.23. So, little gap, little catch up to do in terms of guaranteed affordable units. The next slide. The next slide talks about the strategies that we're putting in the comp plan. And I'm showing on here, the housing plan is both about where we want to allow housing development and also where we don't want to allow housing development. So, down at the bottom, places we don't want housing, we don't want it in our conservation areas with flood risks or industrial parks, and we don't want it in our build out neighborhoods. That's the Dean Estates, the neighborhoods that are built according to our zoning today and that they comply with the zoning. Those are not where we're trying to change anything to add more housing. So there are really three strategies that we're using to get to the housing goal. One is the transit supportive areas. which would be Warwick Avenue, Broad Street, and Elmwood Avenue. The neighborhood mixed, so those areas, I think, are the areas where we think we can accommodate the most growth, where 4-story buildings might be appropriate, where buildings can be up closer to the street line, and where we can take land that's right now a mix of commercial, industrial, and residential land and allow residential anywhere, allowing property owners to propose any mix of any one of those uses, not necessarily mixed use within a single project, but any one of those uses within the zone. The neighborhood mixed use strategy is allowing residential uses in areas that currently don't allow them. I think the rezone that we just did recently, that you just recommended positively and the city council just passed in Knightsville, is a perfect example of a neighborhood mixed use. That was 2 acres where residential use was not allowed, but they got a rezone, allow them to put 30 units on it. It's 2 stories, some 3. It's much lower density than transit supportive areas, but it's the idea is you can blend some residential housing into areas that are now zoned commercial. And then the third part, working really digging in to put numbers on this, is what I'm calling unrealized growth. So those are neighborhoods where there's infill potential, because maybe there's structures that could be adaptively reused, legacy industrial buildings in residential neighborhoods, oversized lots and small lots and ADUs, which are the three things from the state legislation that the state mandates, but we also need to catch up and figure out the Cranston process to do those things. So if you go to the next slide. So this just to illustrate, I put up Legion Bowl at the top, as I think is a good visual illustration of what I'm thinking of in the plan to allow on Elmwood Avenue. So that would be a transit supportive area. It's 4 stories tall. It's got trees along the street. It's got wider sidewalks, and it's a different looking than the below neighborhood mixed use, 2, 2.5, 3 stories, some density, but not nearly as much as what we approved in the commission approved with the Legion Bowl property. I know this is a lot of numbers on a slide. This is where I've met with some people who review plans for statewide planning and to understand their expectations for the numbers. So this is where a lot of our work is now. It's working out our methodology to support the yield numbers that we have for the different strategies. You see at the bottom, we've listed projects that already have been permitted in Cranston, I assume that 5 out of the 6 of them will get built in the next 5 years. Again, there are a lot of assumptions, and coming up with the methodology and the justification to persuade statewide planning that those numbers are real is part of the job. And then I have 3 columns here. What might get built out by 2030, by 2046, and then what would be my estimate if we maxed out that strategy. So we know that we have 800 oversized or small lots that could be unmerged, or oversized lots that could be split that are vacant right now and don't have flood. We subtracted out the floodland to make sure that they were at least broad brush buildable. Obviously, we haven't analyzed the individual lots, but that's sort of the potential if every lot that could be split got split. 800, but I'm assuming we are seeing kind of a surge after the state legislation on lot splits. And then I just go through Independence Way. There's 15 acres where we've talked about rezoning to residential. There's residential across the street. And again, this is where you think about, if we limit that to the 30, 35 feet and keep it small, it'll actually take few of our numbers. So we'll have to do a lot more housing somewhere else. So there's sort of a push and pull between finding those places where density can be accommodated without really affecting the character of any existing neighborhoods and making those trade-offs. Next slide. This you'll have about, there's has to be, we worked on the schedule of ordinances, which is a required part of the housing plan of like, what are the ordinances we would have to adopt as a city to implement that. So this is tentatively our schedule of ordinances. All those things I think you've seen before, although one of the things that we've uncovered through a number of meetings with staff is that we have a lot of ADUs that are not currently current with their, we have a lot of ADUs that may not have been inspected and may have some safety issues, and the ADUs that family. So we have a little bit of a process that we need to create if we want to allow some of those units to convert to a permanent status, and we shouldn't just wave a wand and make them all permanent. We should make sure that they've all been inspected and are safe for human habitation, because there's a concern from the staff that there might be a housing safety issue there. Next slide. So next steps, we're definitely focusing on the map. As staff, we're examining all the city-owned parcels. You know, this one's a drainage, this one's for drainage, this one's for understanding what each of them's for, so we can identify if there are any city-owned parcels that have potential for housing. And we're working on changes to the land use map to match that. We'll be circulating a draft at least a week prior to your next meeting. And I also want to announce that we were selected in a competition to receive technical assistance from the National and states, participating in cohort, getting us through a planning process, housing plan. So that's over the next year. So think of that as our comp plan phase 2 approach to housing, as we're going to participate with our cohort. And we're going to have something for you next month, and we're going to continue to work and refine it for the next year. And there, you know, in order to go back to that first slide where we talked about from comp permits, meeting the 10% affordable housing is one of the things. So even though while we're in a planning process, we are still, you know, we're working on interdepartmental coordination to improve the processes for lot splits and mergers and how that happens, to try to not put unnecessary process and expense on our applicants, because we've been bouncing them around between departments a little bit as we adjusted to the new state legislature. We've been meeting with developers. The Knightsville rezone is a great example, but I've been meeting with a number of other developers, and you know, in the Knightsville one, they came in, and because we had a Knightsville design guideline that suggested mixed use, that called for that neighborhood to accommodate more housing, I was able to say, you know, I know the zoning says this, but why don't you propose something that's consistent with those Knightsville design guidelines? And so we can then push the developer to give us a few more units than we might have yielded from that property under the zoning as it was. And we're also coming next month, we'll have that list of ordinance revisions. We'll have text for you to examine. We would need I would also request a motion to continue this public hearing to November. June. Yes.
Understood.
November.
Any questions for staff? I have a couple myself, but I'll get it started just because I usually am thinking about it as I go along. So I'll start out with, I think the first slide, if I recall, the numbers. So the numbers, so I understand the 1367 number is the number in the draft of the state, and we're working whatever the state's draft is. The 1320 number, who came up with that? Is that you guys did? You guys, okay. Well, so this is subject to change by us, right? Okay.
The statewide planning official population projections don't go out that far. They go out to 2040, and interestingly, they last projected that Cranston would peak about 2035 and then actually start losing population slightly.
Yep.
And it's still, you also have to have an assumption in there for housing replacement. So my numbers I'm showing here
Our
are
replacement
above,
numbers?
are above what the state's projected population was. Because I threw in some padding for need to replace and rejuvenate housing.
Okay.
But it, yeah, it does feel like speculation as you go into the outer years. What will the population, you know, how's it, we're estimating that household size might continue to decline, but not go below 2 as an average household size.
Right.
There are a number of assumptions that go into that.
Yeah, because you know, we don't need to get into a whole demographic discussion here about how Rhode Island is aging. And, you know, we could end up being a losing population over time because of the demographics of baby boomers passing on and stuff like that. So I just, you know, that number to me may be a bit high, but that's over 20 years, 13, 20? Okay,
20 years.
okay.
To 2046.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Ms.
So the dark green is all of the completed building permit. The history is dark green, but everything in the lighter green and the blue is projected. Yes. Yes, so you appreciate my apprehension about those 2030 production goals. Because when you see them on that,
Beth, do we have a list of approved units that are, was that another slide?
it's kind of too small to see, but I put the rezone, it's not really approved, but the Aceto rezone was approved, which could be 30 units. Legion Bowl, 669, Knights Corner.
These are all projects, Steve, that we approved here at the commission level of the council.
Or
They haven't been
whether
built
they're-
yet.
Some of them are at the master plan level, you know, but they're all in the works and have really,
And what about the Capianotto ones? Are they in?
About to say, the one thing I was gonna, that actually brings up a good point. See Champlin Hills? That's actually undercounted. There's phase 1 and there's phase 2. So you only have phase,
we have phase 1 there.
yes, you need one. The other one is a 156 or 165.
Yeah.
And the other one, while we're on this, so I can just get,
Yeah.
There's another one is 747 Pontiac Avenue. That was 18 units. When it, yeah.
Yeah, they're moving on that one.
There's, yeah, I passed by there, there's something going on, it isn't a ghost. You know what I mean? There's something going on in that building. So, those are just a couple of more to add that I wanted to point out to you about that. But that's your point, Commissioner Coop, if you can continue.
Yeah, we have to convince statewide planning that the changes we make will allow for the production of these units.
You're talking about a 20-year housing plan, but according to these projections, in 6 years, the required production is gonna drop like a stone.
Well, more like we have this backlog, we have to catch up and then theoretically we'll be caught up and we'll just have a normal demand.
But we're creating policies and ordinances to allow really high demand, and those aren't gonna change in 6 years. When the projected need for So how do we, do you understand what I'm saying?
I think it may in reality take us more than 5 years to catch up, but yes.
But I
and-
understand, but at some point we will. And we will have made some pretty significant changes to our comp plan, to our policies, to our goals, to our ordinances, to
Mhm.
ramp up production.
Well, to allow, although, as you see, there can be land that sits there unbuilt for a long time. Just
But
because
then-
we allow it doesn't mean
but
it will be
then-
built.
Once we catch up, whenever that is, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, those policies are still going to be in place.
Yeah, and so on this, one of the things I'm trying to do with the math is to look at, I have a build out columns, like, well, if we fully maxed out that policy, what's the maximum? You know, when's the game over? You know, no more small lots you can split. I mean, no more oversized lots you can split. And so we are thinking about that. Now, I think we won't be able to guarantee which of these things will get built in which time frame, but I do think that we have enough ideas on the table that we can meet the numbers without having to dig further. And I do want to emphasize the importance of taking action on rezoning. For example, Independence Way, I've had discussions with 3 or 4, I don't know, maybe 3 developers who are potentially interested in that, but they walk away when I tell them, well, we'd love to have you propose housing there. You just have to, talk to your city councilor and get them to introduce an ordinance and get it rezoned. And they're like, yeah, call me later, lady. They're like, and instead I've had developers asking about doing comp permits out on Situate Avenue. And I'm like, no, Independence Way, So like, if we rezone that, we can help steer them
I guess,
there.
but my question is not necessarily the housing. It is housing production in the short term, but are we putting too many eggs in the housing basket so that at some point we're going to look around and say, we have no commercial land available, we have no industrial land available because we've crammed housing into every possible space that we have.
Yeah, and that is important. If you go back to the slide on your this one, we definitely should be clear in our plan of where we don't want housing, industrial parks, commercial centers, that we want to be really clear that they're not for neighborhood mixed use. They're,
So I'm thinking of Elmwood Avenue. Not that I think we're going to have large scale manufacturing coming to Elmwood Avenue, but there may be some commercial use. And if we fill that up with mixed use or housing, are we eliminating one of the last places that's available for commercial development?
I think you're asking a really good question. One of the standards that we're thinking for the transit-oriented development is that would be understood that industrial uses are allowed to continue and new industrial uses would be allowed. Like all of the above uses are allowed. So if you're choosing to live in that 4-story apartment building on the transit line on Elmwood Avenue, you understand that there were going to be businesses around you and that's part of the vibe of that type of development.
I just wanted to bring that point up for
No,
consideration.
it's very key because we shouldn't, and I think you bring up a really good point about how markets fluctuate. Like right now, the demand for industrial may seem really low, but if we foreclose that opportunity, we could really regret it 10 years from now. If we, let people build housing in our 2 industrial parks. And honestly, the Western Industrial Park, I have had someone inquire about building housing off Amplex Drive because the parcel they are looking at is primarily zoned residential, oddly enough. So it's not just a hypothetical question. You may very well see proposals.
One thing, Commissioner Booth, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add on, like, we're also, at the same time, also thinking about like, how can we, we're also looking at the economic development side. We know there's currently from our zoning code, there's a lot of barriers, for example, for like smaller businesses that we might. And currently also a lot of our industrial land is being used up by self-storage. So that's something we're also looking into as well. So it's the economic development side we're thinking in addition to the housing side. It's not like we're just thinking about housing, but also thinking about another
In discussions with Commerce, they did emphasize that making housing a little more available was important for economic development, but yeah, if we jump to that, we want to do, on the economic development element, we'd like to do some focus groups of small business, larger business, agricultural businesses, and really dig in there. I'm not exactly sure on the time frame because there are a lot of things to wrap our hands around, but we absolutely, we need to consider, I mean, that's the whole concept of the comprehensive plan, is that you look at it from all angles.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll say is public policy tends to be reactive. And when we're making a 20-year plan, I think we need to be proactive.
Just one, Commissioner Coop, just to try to respond to a couple of comments you made. You put the chart back up. Oh, yeah, thank you. That 1367, we already have approved that master plan or preliminary plan or city council level, 636 apartment units. 2 Champlins, all this other stuff. So to me, if they actually do come online, that's half of that 1367. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so that's why this thing is like, it's going up so fast, is that we've already, this is what I try to say, is that we have already approved all that. It just hasn't come online, but our jobs is to allow. It is not to finance. We are not developers, okay? We don't pay people to build stuff.
Which is part of my.
Yes, I understand.
And I think I made that point before, but yeah, but also the fact that we've approved roughly half that number already, and yet we're being dictated by the state to have inclusive zoning and create zones for multifamily housing in an effort to meet the other half of that number. But those are going to be around long after we've reached that 1367 number.
Yeah,
Although the people are already here, that's the large part of that 2030 goal is to house people who are already here in Cranston. They're just adult kids who can then move out to their own apartment or you know, it's about, that's why the household size is also projected to drop with that. It's about housing, not for growth, but to make housing affordable for the people who already live here, to make changes in lifestyle as they go through different phases of life.
But, you know, Rob, one of the cycles is of the 600 units we approved, only a fraction of them are affordable, which will then lower our affordable numbers. So we'll actually get penalized for approving 600 units.
All of them include significant amount of affordable, except for, I think, one.
It's Print Works.
Yeah, so,
All of them have the 15% except Print Works.
And I want to be very clear, no one here is going to accuse me of not supporting housing and affordable housing, but I want to make sure we take a long view. And while I generally support proposals, I do think we need to have a long balance that with every other use that's necessary. And I do think the mandate, I may be closer to the issue than some people, but I think the mandate is coming in at a time when the demand is starting to level off.
Like what you said, Commissioner, if I was seconded it this way, dictate. Ideally, I would not be putting a 1367 number. I think you know me well enough. That's not my number. That's the state's number for now. And so this is why I've tried to talk to the director about, to some extent the staff, is we will try our best to get to that number. And half of that number we have already, like I said, approved. In regards to the other stuff, that's why we can get the other stuff like the transit-oriented development, something here, something there, but I do not want to make fundamental changes to our neighborhoods. because I do not think that is necessary to meet this housing demand that we're being talked about, because you're saying it's leveling off. In many states across the country already, in the West and the South, housing prices are starting to decline. We are usually in the Northeast, kind of the back end of it, as you know, about housing prices. Someone was telling me, I got to get the articles, that Connecticut's already starting to show some signs. So we are reacting to a lack of building from the 2008 to the 2017 number. So we have already approved 636 units, and there's all these other things. So I do have a concern that by the time we get to about 2028, 29, people are gonna be like, wait a minute, we don't need all this more housing. But we're not there. The state hasn't figured this out yet.
But so you and I are saying the same thing.
Absolutely. I'm just telling you that I got to deal with this guy up at the State House and the planning departments up there and the statewide planning who want 1367.
And we have to, it's to our benefit to show how we would allow that. That doesn't mean that that amount will get built in 5 years. It doesn't amount, nobody expects developers to try to build with the demand softens. If they can't fill those units, they're going to stop.
And one thing, Commissioner Coop, I think we'll see what the staff comes up with and what we think about. Like I said, we've already have half I call half we've already gotten there. So what we need to do to get that other number, I'm on the I'd rather do less than more kind of change. And we just can be a little bit more targeted, but we can talk about, what we have to, because we do have to make a good faith effort, the 1367. That's my own view. And what comes after, we can figure out. Sorry, Commissioner Renzulli.
I just have a question, probably for the staff. If we get to that 1367, it doesn't necessarily matter how from that chart. So it doesn't matter from which category those
Correct.
homes come from.
It'd be like that squeezing the balloon thing, like we
could just be from one. We could just
some
fill
of our
one,
policy
max out
changes
one.
might really yield results and others might yield nothing.
We could actually do things, Commissioner Coop, on a phase basis. Like some of the things we already got 636 in the can, as we go, if we're still seeing a housing shortage, it's not supply, we start implementing further and further, but if it's starting to not appear anymore, we would stop. Because we in the end have to implement. But there's plan and then there's implementation. That's just my own thing. Commissioner Winfrey, I know you've been patient. You have your finger on the button.
I would. Other plan. One talked about small lots, oversized lots. And there, I think, was some language in there to allow it by.
Yeah, right now it often costs people thousands of dollars just to get an answer to whether they can or can't move forward with an application. So it'd be great to have something that could help them get a sense based, of whether that would be allowed without having to base everything on individual analysis.
So by right. language that, so I would be very careful. To craft
We can have performance standards, but I don't believe that statewide planning will let us count numbers that aren't by right. We need to articulate what our criteria are. We can't just do it because
I know you put language as is predominant in the local neighborhood.
correct. So it's very, we are working very hard on some specifics. We have a number of different schemes we put together in terms of different ways to analyze it. In a number of our eastern neighborhoods, particularly in the B1 and A6 zones, the predominant lot sizes are smaller than 6,000. And our comp plan for the last 20 years has called for rezoning those neighborhoods to match the predominant fabric of the neighborhoods. We're not talking about the majority of neighborhoods or the majority of zones. We're just talking about places where the neighborhood already exists with its 4,000 or 5,000 square foot lots, and we came in and rezoned it A6 on top. And the states created an opening through their oversized and small lot rules that allow people to split it based on a 200-foot analysis, but I would much prefer a neighborhood-based analysis because there are natural boundaries to neighborhoods. The 200-foot is very artificial in my perspective, and it would be much better to have a table like, okay, you're in this zone in Knightsville, you got 5,000, you're good, because that's a neighborhood full of 5,000 square foot lots. And that's whether we do it as a rezone or we do it as a table that grants exemption to lots of a certain size in certain areas from the merger provision. There are a couple different strategies we could take for doing it, but we're bleeding a lot of money out of property owners who, just to get to the answer to the question of can I build on 5,000 square foot lots? So it's very expensive to apply for a variance.
What's the variance request?
You can easily run up thousands of dollars, a couple thousand for the land surveyors, and then the certified mail. And I mean, someone walked in yesterday, said that, they cost them $6,000 just to find out whether it's a yes or a no. It'd be much better if we can be like, no, it's not 5,000, you can't do it.
I mean, if you want to build a house, you need a class 1 survey anyway, so you can't.
You will to build it, but you
So
know
you
whether
can't-
to get the survey. You may not appreciate the frustration of the residents of Cranston who walk into our office throughout the week. And then we explain to them our ordinances in the state test, and they're like, you've got to be kidding. I know, but it's embarrassing to not have processes that are a little easier to explain. I come from the economic development world. I don't think there's any benefit to any of us bleeding money out of property owners just for the process. Because
could you go back, put the slide up that shows the production numbers, what you're proposing? So which one you talk about rezones? Like, what are you talking about when Commissioner Lanfear's question about splitting up lots and oversized lots? What's the number there?
So the state legislation, I think, gives people the right to probably, if they all hire the land surveyors and lawyers, maybe split up to 800 lots in a city. A lot of places that are zoned.
So that's under
wrong.
state law right now.
Right, and I'm saying
Okay.
if that's the way we're gonna do it, let's make it a simple process that works for us and doesn't leave money out of.
Well, we can't.
Yes, we.
No, we can't, because the state, it's an enabling law that we have to follow.
Oh, yeah, so they can always prove to us, but we could also give people a yes without them spending all that money.
No,
On unmerging, we'll talk
No.
offline.
No,
We have policy
we-
choices we can
we
make. We
cannot-
can't do less than the
we
state.
cannot, we have to follow state enabling law to the T.
Absolutely. It's 15-acre
No, I get
rezone.
that, I get that. I'm talking about her stuff, Commissioner Lanfear's points. Is anything else up there other than the small lots? Because if it's small lot split oversized lots, that's all state law. Then I don't need to do anything other than what state law tells me to do. Right? By law.
I would recommend that we adopt a better process.
I understand, but my saying is,
In accordance
I-
with our comp plan that
Oh.
says we are going to allow development
I
that
understand.
matches the character of the neighborhood.
This is a long running discussion and I understand that whole thing. This is about production. So if state law is already going to make me produce, if people follow it, 250 lots by 2030. Well, and that's what state law wants. That's what we do. We don't have to do anything more than what state law says. And if Commissioner Lanfear has some concerns and all this other stuff, I don't really need, to reinvent the wheel.
No, and we can zero out one, if we don't make any, I would estimate lot splits a lot lower if we don't make the process sane. If we just stick to like, go hire a lawyer and fight us, which, people can do that. You spend your 6,000, you get your shot, you might get approved. But we can, we could zero out that line and instead try to concentrate more of our efforts in another
You could
area.
zero out that line, put in 156 from Champlain Hills. Phase 1. And right now, all we're talking about is like 90 units. Okay, so that's what it is. If they, I don't even think you need to zero out that line. Just by going by the state law process, you were talking just earlier that you're seeing a lot more because of the state legislation. What do you call it? Lot splitting is the phrase you used. How many have you seen so far this year since the law changed? Any idea? 25, 50, 30, 10?
I could get you that number.
Okay. Significant in Cranston.
That have achieved it or that have.
Because you're just.
Are you
hiring.
talking, so we're talking oversized lot subdivisions and substandard lots? By right, substandard lots?
Whatever it is, variances, whatever you guys
200
talking
foot
about.
radius. Only a handful. Oversized lot subdivisions, we haven't gotten any so far. I mean, it's
Okay.
pretty new, so that may or may not
Right.
change.
Right.
Of the people who have contacted our office who are interested, I think we have seen one property that qualifies so far.
The oversized lot one, I don't think really apply.
Okay.
It's less of a Cranston thing because we're pretty platted.
Yeah. I
The
know.
oversized lot may be a Smithfield thing where they have less flats and they have more bigger kind of acreage.
It depends. So in the Eastern Cranston side, we do have median lot sizes are somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 very often. And sometimes people will have double lots with the house on like one side. So there are cases where, people will qualify, but like people who have like inquired about it in our office so far, there was one property that I can remember that we looked into that would qualify for this, of people who are interested for oversized. And of like substandard lots that didn't need a variance of some sort, maybe some like, 'cause I see a lot of them come through, maybe less than 10 probably this year.
Okay, so let's say we use a number 10. Can we use that number? Okay, thank you. So we do 10 times 5 makes 50, right? Okay, so those 250 goes to 50. And then I put my 156 from Champlain Phase 1, and I put my 18 from 747 Pontiac Avenue. I'm pretty close to 1367, I think. So then I don't,
Well, I hope we'll consider making some changes that will help the city
I follow state
going
law.
forward
I understand.
because, Cranston's over 10 years behind in implementing zoning that matches its comprehensive plan. And we see the effects of that in Western Cranston in terms of the conservation zoning not being in place. And we see that in terms of just the Elmwood Avenue is not looking that great these days. I shouldn't say that on tape, but we have some places where there could be more investment, where they look like disinvested commercial areas. We have a couple. And
Commissioner Lanfear has
One
another
more
question, comment. or-
I hope. On the transit you know, I, talked about
Reservoir, yeah.
I'm currently working on an analysis on that.
Yeah, and there is some, we want, you, in order to be successful, we don't want to spread out everywhere. You want to actually pick some areas you're planning to focus redevelopment on, because then you can be successful. I know there is some transit service on a few other north-south roads in the city. The best transit city service we have right now is in the eastern part of the city. Definitely worth discussing, and we did put together, I don't know if we'll get it, but we did put in a grant for technical assistance to help us really do a process and, you know, look at those areas and be very nuanced about which segment, what kind of development will be appropriate in each segment along the corridor. It isn't just a corridor, it has nodes too. I mean, there are parts that are totally residential and they have different characters, and we want to make sure that we respect those as we move forward, and that we, you know, the areas where there are mill buildings might have larger residential buildings. The areas where there are smaller residential buildings, we want to respect that fabric.
One thing to follow up, Commissioner Lanfear, on your metro transit issue. When you look at the city, and I know this just from reading RIPTA's efficiency studies, which I do in my free time. The usage is on the east. That's where the high usage is. So if, like, I'll start out with a premise. RIPTA has problems, right? Has financial problems. And they're constantly talking about, you know, cutting back services. Do we have enough money to do things? So what my view is, if you're going to build on transit, you got to make sure that that transit's going to stay there and be frequent usage. So when I look at the system and it goes from east to west, like, I can't remember the bus route over there, but the Broad Street Warwick, the Elmwood are like top 5 usage routes in the state. You could maybe, Elmwood is also a top 5. Okay, Pontiac is pretty good. Okay, that could be another area. But once you start moving west, it gets less and less. Reservoir is medium. There's like 35 or 40 routes in the whole state, and it's a median usage. Oaklawn is even lower, and then it gets like kind of less and stuff. So to me, where the usage, you build where the usage is, where it's not going to be cut, and where I could see people actually wanting to have transit service. So to me, that's why it's Warwick, Broad, and Elmwood, because those are the top, that area is the top 5. Cranston is not in the same, it's like kind of middle. Cranston's like, I think, middle. I don't even know if Cranston Street that goes like this and then down, it goes Cranston Street down Oaklawn. It's not so good. It's below the median of like of all the routes that I recall. Reservoir is about the middle. So to me, that's why it's there. It's not because, I went on the map and I went into Mini Mountain Road. I told the staff, it's basically based on 2 premises. RIPTA's got problems, so it could cut back. And second, that's where the intense usage is. That's where it is. That's the top 5. So I could see that never getting cut and that being stayed. That's what it is. I think I had another question, but I don't remember. Anyone else have any other questions for the staff on this? And this is a work in progress. We anticipate trying to get this done in November, but it may not be ready for a vote on November. We may have to air it out, review it. But our goal is to get this moving along. I think you already got feedback already on number one point, which was the oversized lot issue. And
Yeah.
I did the math for you, which is lower the number and put Champlain Heights Phase 1 in there, and numbers will start working out.
We just have to convince statewide planning that all the projects that are developed will get built.
Well,
I'll work on my
Well,
persuasive
well,
skills.
that's what it is. We'll see what statewide planning has to say. We're doing the best we can. They don't want it. We're gonna do what we can here. That's all we can do. So, oh, no, I won't get into that. All right, that's all I got. Anybody else has anything else for the staff on this? Feel free always to call the staff with any concerns or questions or problems. You know, like for example, specifically Director Guerrero, you know, if you have issues about traffic issues, concerns, always feel free to call, talk to the director. Commissioner Coop, you always had a lot of experience as director of administration, big picture issues. Like I said, just feel free to call the director.
Yeah, super appreciated.
Okay, anything else from anyone else? Okay, I'll make a motion to continue this to our November 4th meeting, amendments to the comprehensive plan. Need a motion. Motion made by Commissioner Vice Chairman Coop, seconded by Commissioner Mazzulli. Any discussion? All those in favor of continuing this to November the 4th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Let's have it. I think that's, Director, thank you for providing a written report. Does anyone have any questions for the director as to a written report? As you know, you can ask her questions anytime about the written report. You don't have to do it at this meeting. Okay, if there's nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn made by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Mancini. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. I'll see you next month.